What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the Apple TV Plus original series, The Afterparty. This will cover Season 2, Episode 6, which is titled Danner's Fire and is directed by Tamra Davis. Okay, so an episode like this is a very unique one, to be fairly honest. It doesn't really follow, outside of a few things, the traditional after-party formula when it comes to the continuation of who killed Edgar or who killed, Xavier or something like that. This is kind of an offshoot story. It could actually be its own kind of thing if it wanted to be, but for some reason, crew and the cast and the writers and Tamra Davis and anybody involved decided this was going to be a fun little story they wanted to tell. And I'm all about it, to be fairly honest. Is it the best of the entire franchise or season? Not really, but I think there's enough there that makes you laugh, and there's enough there that kind of gives you a little more hints and kind of pieces of this puzzle of who killed Edgar, that it's a fun little side story, to be fairly honest. And any episode or anything that has Michael Ealy and Paul Scheer and having, of course, Tiffany Haddish is like the main character is a lot of fun. And then on top of that, this is invoking like the 90s or 80s crime, sexual noirs, like a Basic Instinct or Body of Evidence or something like that. And that's very much feels like very much what you would think of a Danner Fire story or Danner story and stuff like that. And what makes the episode so much fun is just how these characters entwine with how Aniq kind of reacts to everything. And it's really funny because Danner is one of those individuals that really kind of goes for it when she's telling her stories and stuff like that. And I believe this happened in the first season, but watching Aniq kind of like react to like the sexual situations that happen in this episode and the nature of how insane and crazy the arsonist story is, it's really funny. And then of course we get John Early's cult back into the mix, and he's of course the detective that worked with Danner in the first season, and he's a really fun character, so it was nice to bring him back. But what makes this episode kind of important for this whole entire thing is not necessarily the story she's telling, but the idea of like the story being represented to Aniq, where basically, as she says, it's a story about an individual who got too close and kind of ruined their kind of their fervor, the tense nature of who they are. So therefore, it's kind of a lesson for Aniq to basically kind of look past the family, look past the world that he's being involved with. Because if it was somebody like Zoe or it was somebody in her family, he might want to protect them. He might want to not convict them. He might want to let them go free. And it's very much what this story is playing into. The idea of Danner's Fire and the idea of like the arsonist is it's just kind of a fun little piece to have into the show itself. But it really represents just Aniq needs to look past the people that he loves and cares about, because if it was one of those members, he's going to have to make a choice, and that's where this season is going to end up playing out, is whether Aniq has to make a choice or whoever the character is. But it's looking more and more like somebody that he may want to protect, but Danner's like, you just can't do that. You have to be real, because here's my story. She was investigating an arsonist. She thought it was Paul Scheer's character. Paul Scheer was very much an arsonist and is now a recovering arsonist. It's very funny because Paul Scheer is a very funny individual. He's a very funny comedian. He's a guy who comes off as that creepy, crawly, uncomfortable guy. He has scars on his arms and stuff like that. He talks about fire in a very sexual nature, and it's very much played like he is the guy who did it. And of course, as we know, it's very in your face, even though Danner doesn't recognize it and Aniq doesn't recognize it. He is the pawn of this whole entire story, because of course Michael Ealy, who is the psychiatrist, writes 2 books about arsonists, writes 2 books about fire, but he's very much into painting very nude models, and he has a painting he's hiding, and he has all this turpentine wax or turpentine cleaner or whatever, and that's very much a hint. And the way it plays out is just you pretty much suspect Michael Ealy is the killer, because it really plays out very much like those 90s erotic thrillers and stuff like that, where the bad guy you can kind of see it coming in a lot of respects. But it doesn't make it any less funny, because the nature of how Tiffany Haddish and Michael Ealy play the scenes out, it very much feels like they're going above and beyond the nature of the 90s erotic thriller. So there's a scene where they're rubbing food all over themselves, and it's just they're pouring all these. It's really, really funny. When you watch it, you'll laugh your ass off, because they're pouring raw noodles all over each other, and It's really funny, like the different foods they throw on each other, and like the way that Anik's like reacting to this whole scenario is really funny. I think Sam Richardson is a great funny actor in his own right. He plays really well against Danner. This is a duo of individuals that have great chemistry, and it works really well. But on top of that, like I said, John Early comes in the mix as Culp, and the way he figures out like the sexual situation, the way Paul Scheer kind of calls him ugly, and Danner's like, you're beautiful on the inside and outside, and there's like that ugly cop, good cop type of scenario, which is really funny. And a lot of these scenarios that are playing out, they're just meant for like humor and kind of going above and beyond, and going into the insane territory of the 90s erotic thrillers and stuff like that. But I really love that this episode can be an offshoot or kind of a spin-off like style story and still be very funny and still be very interesting and entertaining, and still have some relevancy to the story. And that's what it does really, really well here. It's just about not getting close to the people that could be the suspects or the enemies, and Danner kind of learns her lesson, and it leads up to the fact that Paul Scheer's character gets framed, and you have all this turpentine stuff mixture in his trunk, the rope, and then of course Danner puts it all together, and of course some reason they go up to the bedroom, and Michael Ealy ties her to the bed, and then like, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna set you on fire. The great thing about this chemical is like it can get rid of all the mistakes, and it would have been nice to see like Michael Ealy get his just desserts, but maybe that's going to come later on in a different story or something like that. But it's a really nice kind of little kind of off-road type of thing, which I thought was very, very funny. But like I said earlier, it's giving Anik the idea that he has to not be partial, or he can't take one side. He has to be down the middle, and that's going to be a very difficult situation if it comes to the fruition that he in fact has to pinpoint or pin down who the killer is, and it could be he's one of Zoe's family members. And if it is, that's going to be a really difficult decision to make. Like I said, I talked about it just a little bit earlier, but I'm just saying and reiterating that there is a possibility that one of her family members is the killer, which I don't know if that's going to happen. But like I said, there's many scenarios. It doesn't really add anything new to the mystery outside of the simple fact that, this story that's not the Danner's Fire stuff is about how Travis decided he was going to thanks to Reddit, because he never does anything on his own. It's either Reddit or Instagram or whatever. Decides from Red Pill 69 that if he crushes up, mixes it with hot water, and takes the devil's trumpet, takes a tiny little bit, it just will cause, hallucination. Because Zoe and of course Ulysses walk in, and they talk about, of course, this Dutch baby's pancakes and stuff like that. It leads into Travis having hallucinations while they try to settle him down. And there's some really interesting stuff here, because when he is consoled by Grace, when Travis is like freaking out and stuff like that, Hannah makes a point of like, oh, well, he got Grace's attention again. And of course, Zoe looks at Hannah, which Hannah is very upset by this fact, because Hannah is very much in love with Grace and stuff like that. It doesn't really lead into much until the very end of the episode, where Travis basically says, you could literally, anyone in this family or anyone in this area could do this with some hot water, a teapot, and these devil trumpets could have killed, of course, Edgar's character. Well, this gets Zoe's attention, and she walks out of the room up to Edgar's room where he's still dead, which is, they don't have like a blanket over him. They just have a dead body, which is now blue and stuff like that. So once again, Edgar could be like in stasis or something like that. He could be, under like, the drug spell or whatever, the devil's trumpet. But she walks in there and she notices the teapot and the little kind of knit thing that's over it. And as she's looking at it, of course, Isabella walks in. She hides in the bathroom, and of course drops the teapot into the little basket there. And of course, what's really interesting is how Isabella goes to the closet, says gotcha, and of course Zoe's looking ahead of her. And what I find interesting is Isabella's still looking in the closet. So is there somebody in the closet? I mean, I don't know if that's just like, they just kind of wanted to have a little suspension of disbelief there or something like that. Isabella disappears, the door's shut, and she walks off. And Zoe, of course, has the teapot in like a hidden thing. So what really is interesting now that I'm starting to wonder is like, did Zoe or did somebody in the family accidentally kill Edgar, or is Edgar once again in cahoots with someone? So this might be a thing where somebody gave Edgar the devil's trumpet by accident, and it was maybe meant for someone else, or maybe Zoe, and there's the whole thing with Vivian and like the tea situation, and it's a really interesting thing because there was a Twitter post or something of that nature where each episode now you can kind of go back and there are clues, like double the amount of clues of like the first season, where you could almost, like they're saying, you could almost kind of figure things out if you kind of look at it. And I was thinking, like, what if this is a thing where a couple people by accident killed Edgar and didn't even do it on purpose? And it really leads to some openings of like, who is doing what? Is somebody trying to hide this? Somebody trying to hide that? Or did somebody kill him out of spite? I mean, it's just this episode doesn't really give a lot of new stuff. It's just, now we know the culprit was a teapot. Now we know it was killed because if you take too much of the devil's trumpet, drink too much, it will kill you. And I don't know. I find it really fascinating that it leads into some really interesting kind of questions about what really truly killed Edgar. Was it an accident, or was he killed by out of spite, like I said? And it could have been Zoe and Vivian. Like, I don't know. I mean, according to IMDb, the last episode is called Zoe and Vivian. So, I mean, that would be a little too on the nose. But I think, once again, like I said last week, there was a picture frame with a horse on it, which is, of course, her father's horse. But it had an eye on it, which could be a camera. There could be stuff in the hallway. That's something I noticed last week. Is either last week or this week or whatever it was. The suit of armor had a cloak on it with red and white stripes, and I guess that's a thing or something like that. But I'm sure the picture frames have something to do with it. I mean, it's just, there's so many clues that, like, if you notice something, please comment below, tell me what you think. But once again, it's very interesting from just like kind of a surface level on like what exactly was the culprit. Like, did he just like did he drink it by accident? Was somebody like purposely giving it to him? Yeah, I don't know, but I'll be really interested to see. But honestly, with that said, it's a very fun episode. It has a lot of interesting intrigue. It's very fun. It harkens back to those 90s erotic thrillers and stuff like that. And I feel like it gives Tiffany Haddish and Michael Ealy and all these people who are very funny in their own right a chance to shine. And, like I said, Tiffany Haddish, for better or worse, depending on how you feel about her, I think she's very, very funny. And she does a really nice job with this episode. So overall, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 just because I feel like it does detract a little bit from the series. But I do think it's a very great, fun episode with a lot of fun, entertaining values when it comes to the hilarity and humor, and the idea of the teapot and Ulysses with the Dutch baby pancakes, which is really funny, and all that stuff and all that good times. So, but there you go. That's my take on this episode. So with that said, that'll do it. That'll be my take on episode 6, which is, of course, Danner's Fire of the Afterparty Season 2. Comments below. What do you think about this episode? What do you think, like, did anything like kind of open your eyes to like who could have done it, or how it could have been played out, so on and so forth when it comes to the killer of Edgar? But yeah, with that said, let me know in the comments below. So with that said, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top of the fun that's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.